Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
Hey, we're back in the studio. Today is a very, very special guest. I had the opportunity to work with this gentleman back in the early 90s on the fair and festival circuit. Give you a little hint. He's the younger brother of another country legend, Lefty Frizzell. That should tell you right there who we've got in the studio. By the age of 18, was recording country and rockabilly for Columbia Records.
Yes, we've been talking about that a lot here lately.
And then went off, did a short stint in the military.
Yeah, but you know what? They wouldn't let me near an airplane. So I just kept playing country music, and I just grabbed that guitar and head to the clubs.
Well, we appreciate that. And thank you for your service, by the way. In 1981, had the #1 hit, You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma, which I was telling you before we started the show, I still hear on the radio. It's in regular rotation, especially on Sirius XM. Won the CMA Song of the Year and Vocal Duet of the Year with Shelley West. Also Vocal Duo in 81 and 82. I like this part. Clint Eastwood heard the song and wanted it on his movie, Any Which Way You Can.
Yeah.
That had to have been a blast.
Oh, my God.
#1 single, I'm Going to Hire a Wino to Decorate Our Home, which, by the way, still hear that one on the radio all the time. 14 albums, 5 top 40 singles. David Frizzell, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me out here. Actually, this is my first time in this part of town, so it's good to see you.
Yes.
It's gonna be a good. Actually, you're talking about a lot of things that I know a lot about because I was a part of a whole bunch of this stuff.
Well, good. We got plenty of time. As long as you do, we're good. You started out with your brother Lefty in the studio.
I don't know if I've told anybody this or not, but from the age of about 11 or 12, my age, 11 or 12, Lefty would about once or twice a year, he'd come by and pick me up at Mom and Dad's, pick me up, and take me to a studio. I never did know why, basically. But I guess he was just checking my voice out. Yeah. So I toured with him, opened some shows for him, and when I was about 14, 13, 14 years old, and we was living out in New Mexico. Place called Loco Hills, New Mexico.
Loco Hills.
My dad was in the oil field work and roused about and out there, with them oil wells and so forth. And Letty would come by and pick me up and take me into Roswell or Artesia or Carlsbad, wherever he might have a date. And what was real funny is that I was obviously 11, 12, 14 years old and not supposed to be in there. But it makes a whole lot of difference when you're just on that bandstand.
Yeah.
And so I'd go with him. And then when I was 16, I started working with him full time. And I tell everybody that when I was 16, I tell everybody that I was doing all the driving I was actually doing road managing work before there was anybody knew what road manager meant.
Road manager was, yeah.
And so I was doing, I make sure the guitars are in tuned and, make sure they were tuned up and cleaned up and so forth. And I tell everybody that my main job, though, was to keep the beer cold. That was a big job in those days.
Hey, I've had that job, too, so I know. Yeah.
Especially when you go into Oklahoma, which was a dry state at that time.
Yeah.
In 56, 57, 58. That was a dry state. I don't know about counties, but it was a dry state. So I had to be on my toes all the time. If we go into Oklahoma or something like that, boy, I'd had my days filled with making sure that everything was going right.
You worked together on Long Black Veil?
Long Black Veil. That was I remember, I tell you what happened. I tell you what happened. I think about 18 years old at that time, 59. It was 1959. Lefty had a recording session with Don Law, Columbia Records, here in town.
Yep.
And he and all of us lived in California. He didn't want to fly because he had some dates to do, So he wanted to drive, so I went with him. And there were some dates to hit on the way back. And then we actually got out into Nashville probably like 7th or 8th or 9th or something like that of February. But his session wasn't until the 3rd of March. So he had some dates that he had to fly to while we were in town. So he left me there in town with some friends who was staying with. And then he'd go do these dates, come back in. And we were actually on our way back, and we was working in Hobbs, New Mexico. We had a 3 days of dates in Hobbs, New Mexico. The second day we were there, that was exactly when Buddy Holly passed. So it gives you an idea when that was.
Yeah.
I think that was February the 3rd, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Anyway, I was probably the biggest Buddy Holly fan in the world. There just probably wasn't anybody any bigger fan of Buddy Holly than me. And I still am. All these years, I still am. So I'd open each show with a Buddy Holly song. That'll be the day. There's so many things that happen because of that song, in which if you have time today, I'll tell you some of it. But,
please.
But basically, we were there at a place in Hobbs, New Mexico. It was called the El Maurice Club, and it was a strip joint. And it's the only time I can recall, and all the time I was with Lefty, that he showed up on time for the shows. It was just the darndest thing.
Go figure.
Yeah. But we drove up to the club, and he didn't know that, who was opening the shows or just what. But when we drove up to the club and it says that on the marquee,
yeah.
He found out real quick. The owner of the club came out to say hello to Lefty. Lefty said, he said, I don't follow strippers. He said, and it was real quiet for 2 or 3 heartbeats. But he said, but David does. I said, I'll do it. And so the manager at the club, or the owner of the club, said, Lefty, you do whatever you want to do, that's what we'll do. Whatever you want to work it, that's how we'll do it.
Yeah.
So actually there was 3 strippers, and they would come on and do their 15 or 20 minutes, and then they do all 3 of them at one at a time, but 3 of them. And then I would come on and I'd do 3 songs. That'll be the day is one of them.
I don't think we've ever actually talked about strippers on this show. This is a whole new subject.
Well, it's just the way we are and the way we act. This is my country. Anyway.
God bless that country.
Anyway, and then I do 2 or 3 songs, and then I'd bring Lefty on. And majority of the time, not every time, but the majority of the time, I'd stay up there with him because he wouldn't rehearse with the band,
Yeah.
And there was a band. I would rehearse with them, and so I'd stay up there with him and turn around. So there was no thing as a number charts in those days, as far as I know.
Right.
So I would turn around. When he was doing the show, I could turn around and show the band what key we're at and where we're at. And most of the people in those days that I think about now didn't take the time to learn a particular show of a particular artist if they're going to back him. Now they kind of do, everybody kind of does. But in those days, a lot of people didn't know what Mom and Dad Waltz was. Or maybe they didn't know what Always Late. Or If You Got the Money, I Got the Time, I Love You 1,000. They didn't know any of those songs. So I'd turn around and I'd show them how to play it.
On stage.
Yeah, on stage.
Yeah.
And then I play a little harmonica with him, and then I would sing harmonies with him. Everybody knew that David Frizzell was a huge Buddy Holly fan. I mean, everybody that worked with Lefty, like booking agents and managers, and although they all knew who David Frizzell, he knows that Buddy Holly. Anyway, Buddy and all of those guys, got killed in that airplane. The guy, Steve Stebbins, was a fella in California, Americana Corporation in California, who was booking and taking care of Lefty's career, called Lefty and said, Buddy Holly, Big Bopper and Richard Valens, they just was in a crank, and the day said, I know that David's it's going to affect him, because everybody knew I was a huge fan.
Right.
And so he told Lefty, and I didn't know it at the time, but he told Lefty, he said, I think I can get David, if he wants to do it, on that tour.
Wow.
To maybe finish it up, or whatever they want to do, because he knew the bookers and the promoters. You know, everybody that it just seemed like we know a lot of people in our business. You know a lot of people that do everything that you do. The booking agents know other booking agents. It's just kind of the way it is. Every morning when I was with Lefty, about 10 o'clock, I'd leave the hotel room and I'd go get some coffee and I'd get whatever anybody might have to take to Lefty's room. So about 10 o'clock that morning, I was going toward the place where I get him some coffee and stuff like that, although he didn't drink much coffee, but, something to eat, maybe a donut with or something. As I was going by his room, he opened the door and said, "David, you got to come here."
You didn't know yet, did you?
No, I didn't know. And so he said, I thought something was wrong because it was different. I mean, he never did that.
Yeah.
So I went in the room. He said, "You might want to sit down." Then I was really starting to, something's going on here, So I sit down and he said, "I just got a call from Steve Stebbins and Buddy Holly just got killed." Man, it was a good thing I was sitting down. I have to admit, it was a good thing I was sitting down or I'd have buckled up. So it was a really big deal, a huge deal. He waited till I kind of got over the news of that before he said, he says he might be able to get you on that tour if you want to do it. I said, "Well, what? Well," he said, "Well, you'd sing Buddy Holly songs." So I know you know him. I said, "Well, yeah." I said, but I'm with you. I mean, you ain't got nobody out here but me. That's all you got. And so anyway, he said, "Well, you don't have to give him an answer right now, but you do by in the morning. So give us all day to think about it, all day tomorrow." So the next day was our closing day at the place. And after the show, there about it, he said, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Well, I can't leave you out here. You can't do this." He said, "Don't worry about me. I've been doing this for years."
Yeah.
How you doing? I said, "That's Hobbs, New Mexico, and we've been driving since L.A." So he had to go to Nashville, Tennessee from Hobbs, New Mexico. And then when he got out here, then he had to fly to certain dates. Then he had that big session. So I said, "I just can't leave you out here by yourself. I just can't do that." And he said, "Boy, this might be a big chance for you to do something. If we'd done that, we wouldn't have been in hillbilly rock or whatever. It'd be a different kind of music than what I ended up being in.
Right.
It would have been a different thing. Early rock and roll is what it was, where Buddy Holly was. But nobody seems to realize that Buddy Holly was country before he met Elvis.
That's right.
He was doing country music with his brothers. So I was just such a huge fan, and like I say, I still am. Anyway, so we went back, and I said, I'm gonna have to go with you because he said, "You know what? Well, quit worrying about it." He said, "Because let me just tell you something. I got a feeling something big's gonna happen. I don't know what." And he said, "And I got a feeling it's not just for me." He said, "Because I think something big's gonna happen for you. Maybe it's because this thing here happened and that would be a big deal for you, but so I've got a feeling something big's going to happen for you." I said, "Well, then let's go."
Yeah.
So we took off, went to Nashville, got into Nashville, and the first thing we did was stop at a little convenience market, and he called Don Law. Don said, "Don't move. I know right where you're at. Don't move. I'll be right there. I got something for you." He brought over a little reel-to-reel of 3 songs. I can't remember what the other 2 songs was, because he said, "Pay attention to the 3rd song." The 3rd song was Long Black Veil.
Wow.
And when I heard that, and it was Mary John, I don't know if you know Mary John Wilkins, great songwriter and a great lady. But she and Danny Deal had co-written the song. And she was the one she played piano, and she was the one that did the little demo. I wished I had that in my pocket right now.
Oh my gosh,
Wouldn't you like to hear that? Oh my goodness gracious. I don't know what I did with the tape because that was one of my deals, was to keep track of everything.
Yeah.
And then I just don't remember Lefty hearing that but about twice. Now, he may have heard it when I wasn't standing there with him and but he had a little woolen sack tape recorder.
I remember those.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm
yeah.
talking about the size of your briefcase. And he carried it everywhere he went, and I would put the song on for him, and he'd listen to it. And then I only did that twice, from the time we got it to the time he recorded it. Now, I can't say that's the only listen to it twice, but it's the only time I ever heard him listen to it was twice. So the 3rd of March, which is just a couple of weeks away, he cut the most amazing, he did a master's job on recording that song. And I've heard a lot of people cut that song. There are a lot of people sing that song. I love every one of them. But I'm telling you what, Lefty's version was a masterful cut.
And made it into the Library of Congress.
It made it into the Library of Congress.
Yeah.
It is amazing. And I haven't told anybody this either, but after Lefty cut the song, there was 3 songs cut. There were 4 songs was down, but he only cut 3. And that day, everybody was messing with the tapes. I mean, messing with everything. When he came over to me and he stood beside me, he said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I've never heard a song any better than that, but I've never heard one any sadder either." That is a sad song. But he did. I've never seen anybody. I had the utmost respect and love and respect for Lefty. But I have to tell you, after I heard what he did on that song, he had me from that. That was it. I mean, there was nothing that man couldn't do. And he proved it over and over every time he stepped in the studio, every time he stepped on stage or whatever. But when he sang The Long Black Veil, I knew this guy was capable of doing anything.
Yeah.
And he proved that again over and over and over.
Created a piece of timeless work.
I've heard a lot of people sing that song. Even the Rolling Stones did it.
We're going to take a break, get a word in for our sponsors. When we come back, we got a whole lot to talk about here. We got a big stack of stuff to go through. Yeah.
Even one of my hats.
Yeah, you got one of your hats there. We're going to talk about your time with Freddie Hart, the lifetime of friendship, with him and Merle.
Oh, goodness.
Going back there. Talk a little bit about Dottie West. Spent some time with her.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about here. In the studio with us today, David Frizzell. We're going to play some of his music during the break here.
This is Claire Ratliff with Laughing Penguin Publicity, and you're listening to the business side of music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Hi, this is Vinny Rebus, the founder of Indie Connect. Our goal is to ensure that you have the knowledge, the tools, skills, resources, and connections that you need to develop a profitable and long-lasting career in music. One way we do this is through these business side of music podcasts. I'd also like to invite you to check out Indie Connect magazine, our free multimedia online publication packed with practical interviews and advice from music industry experts. Go to www.indieconnectmag. That's www.indieconnectmag.com. Let us walk with you and guide you every step of your musical journey.
You're listening to the business side of music.
We cut our teeth on always late with your kisses. Mom and Dad waltz, and I love you 1,000 ways. I follow my brother's footsteps through the music he was making. We both sing his songs like our own to this day.
We grew up singing working man blues. Mama tried and sing me back home and Mama's hungry eyes. I followed my daddy's footsteps through the music that I'm making. We'll sing his songs that we love till we die. Lefty, Merle, and me is how it's always been,
And the way it'll always be
with Lefty,
Merle and me.
Back in the studio with, I'm going to just say it, country music legend. You just are David Frizzell. It's an honor to have you here in the studio. During the break, we played Lefty, Merle, and Me, which you wrote. And these were heroes of yours, right?
And I just love everybody. I've been in this business since I had a radio show when I was 9 years old, for heaven's sakes, in Kermit, Texas. So I've been kind of in this business a long time. I have my heroes. Of course, it all started from Lefty, obviously. It was Lefty, Merle, Johnny Cash, Marty Robbins. Those are the four. I'm telling you, I worked with every one of them. I knew every one of them. And I just loved every blasted thing, about those people. But there were also a few others like Ray Charles, Sam Cooke. I loved that kind of music as well. That was some of the kind of music that I love. And when I hear anybody like a Sam Cooke sing a song, it can't be done any better than that.
And you know what was amazing? My wife and I talk about this a lot. Back in those days, you didn't have auto-tune. You didn't have pitch correction.
Oh, yeah.
And what went on tape was what they recorded.
That's exactly right.
And I mean,
you had to be ready. It was a requirement that before you get that job, before you get signed, that you brought that to the table. I mean, being on key, that's a normal thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to have that, or you never get that signed deal. But another thing they had in those days that they've got now is that they didn't have like category. Everything wasn't in a category. I mean, you listen to radio, and you might hear Tony Bennett, you might hear Rosemary Clooney, you may hear Frank Sinatra, you may hear a Lefty Frizzell, you might hear a George Jones, you might hear an Ernest Stubb for sure.
That's how it was when I grew up as a kid.
It was,
yeah.
And then they started putting everything in categories.
In different formats.
And then they got to put you into a category. All of a sudden, I was singing Buddy Holly and some Elvis and some Ray Charles and some Sam Cooke, and then all of a sudden, I'm in traditional part of country. I was in music.
Yeah.
I mean, even on some of those shows I did during those days, I mean, I was doing Ray Charles and Eddie Arnold, whom I'm a big fan of. George Jones,
Did you have a particular favorite? I mean, Buddy Holly, obviously, but later on, was there one that just stuck out?
I mean, a person or a song?
A song?
A song?
Yeah.
Then I met Merle Haggard. And then anything Merle did was my favorite.
Yeah.
There's one little thing that brought that in was that I was on a tour. I was doing a tour. I can't remember what year it was. I'd have to really think about what year it was. But I was on a tour up in northern Nevada, up in Idaho and Washington State, and I had come to. I was had a meeting in Vegas at the Nashville, Nevada club that was there at the time. I doubt if that's been years ago. Anyway, I had a meeting with a steel guitar player, and I was just going to say hi to him, So I just stopped, and I was waiting for him to meet me at the club, and all of a sudden, somebody played a song called "Sing Me Back Home," and I thought, my brother's got another hit. That sucker. I said that. I'm telling him, I turn my back on him and he gets another hit. That is just amazing. So I walk over to the jukebox, "Sing Me Back Home," Merle Haggard. I had never heard of Merle Haggard. I mean, I just had never heard of Merle Haggard. And all of a sudden, well, somebody got this wrong. Because I remember another time that when I was with Columbia Records and I had a song called L.A. International Airport. When the first recording of L.A. International Airport, I was on tour going up to Washington State from Bakersfield, going up. It was about 3 a.m. I stopped at this truck stop, and I went over to the jukebox. Here's that song. This is amazing. I looked at it and it said, Lefty Frizzell.
Well, at least they spelled the last name right.
I cannot get nothing right.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference. But then, of course, I went in the Air Force. I went in the Air Force in 1960. And the thing was that I was with Lefty from 56 to 1960, and I was doing everything Lefty. And almost every day of those years, Lefty would say, David, now we're out here with all these people. Every Sunday in those days, and during the touring season, there would be a Sunday show, and it would be multi-artists on there, from Johnny Cash to Johnny Horton to Lefty, George, Johnny Horton, Carl Smith. I don't know if you ever heard the name Carl Smith. I'm a big fan of Carl Smith. Lefty says, you're out here all the time and you're with all these people. You're getting to hear all of them. But at the end of the day, you got to be David. We don't need another Johnny Cash. We don't need another me. Don't sound like me.
Yeah.
He said, we don't need another me. He said, because actually I'm having trouble with him myself. And every day he'd point out, you got to be David. There's got to be a David. We don't need. I remember one time was getting ready to leave, going on a tour, and I was sitting in the den at his home, San Fernando Valley, Granada Hills area. I don't know if you're familiar with California. And I was sitting in the den by the pool table, which I have at home now, and I was playing something on the guitar. I was trying to write a song, or I was playing something. And he came by, about 10 o'clock in the morning, he came by, and he stopped, and he looked down at me, and I'm playing something. And I look up at him, I stop, and he goes into the kitchen, opens the refrigerator, because I could hear it open, and he came back through, and he stopped again. And I stopped and looked down, and he says, and we don't need another Bob Dylan either. And he walked on in there, walked on. And then after Lefty passed in 75, it seemed like everybody wanted to sound like Lefty.
Lefty, yeah.
And I thought, why would he tell me that? I should have sounded exactly like you. Which is pretty nice, because if I want to, I can kind of sound like Lefty.
But you created your own sound.
I did, because of everything he told me. He kept saying, David, you got to be yourself.
Be yourself, yeah.
And between him and Merle would always say, David, you got to find a hit song. You got to have a hit. You got to have a hit. Once you have that hit, and he'd say, once you do one for them, which is the public, once you do one for them, then you can do anything you want to do.
Yeah.
He said, I gave him Okie for Muskogee for heaven's sake. He said, now I basically do whatever I want to. And I said, well, that's why I'm sitting here, Merle, because you got them all. Why don't you just give me one? Anyway, he kept telling me, you got to have that hit, and it's up to you to get it. He said, it's up to you to get it. Whether you write it, whether you talk somebody out of it, or whatever, you got to get it. So I was on the lookout for a hit song. I'm on the lookout for a hit song. And when I ran across a song called You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma, for some reason, that sounded like a hit to me. So I arranged it. And for some reason, I was hearing it as a duet. So we found Snuff Garrett. Steve Dorff, who's one of the greatest people in the world. I don't know if you've ever heard his, he's incredible. And I heard he's moving out from California, moving out here. So you'll get a chance maybe to run into an absolute, I call him the only real genius I know. It's just incredible. And the greatest guy to go along with it. But anyway, took that song. And then we found Shelley West. And Snuff Garrett.
Where'd you find Shelley?
Shelley, that goes back just a little bit. My brother Alan, my youngest brother Alan, was fronting Dottie's show. So, and Shelley was singing background. So somehow or other, you know how that kind of works, they got together and they ran off. And they actually left here, in Nashville here, and went to a friend of ours, had a car lot, still got a car lot, matter of fact, Florida. And my brother Alan was trying to sell a car. He couldn't sell a car. He couldn't give one away. You know. And Shelley was trying to be the secretary. She couldn't be no secretary. So they came out to our place. And that morning when they showed up, I didn't even really expect them. Anyway, here they are knocking on my music door where I had my tape recorders and stuff open. He came in. I couldn't believe it. There's my brother standing there. I hadn't seen him in a long time. And he said, David, I want you to meet Shelley. Shelley, come in and sing for him. She stands there, and she sings a song called Bartender's Blues. I don't know if you ever heard the song, but it's an absolutely incredible song. And she did it just a cappella standing there. And it just blew me away. And I thought, this is amazing. So anyway, they put a little band together around there, and I would take them out with me on occasion, whenever I could, on some of the shows that I was working. And then finally, they got a job at this little nightclub in a little town called Lindsay. And we were living out of Porterville, California, Visalia, Porterville, Tulare, that area. And so they went to work at this little club in Tulare. And I went over and listened to them, jumped up there and sang with them, then I bought the place. So then they put the band in there. So they were working a couple of nights a week. When I bought it, they started working 5 nights a week, 6 nights a week. And then when I was on the road, I'd be on the road. But when I came back, I'd jump up there and join them. We had the best time in the world. And then I had the opportunity. I got in my mind. I don't know how I even got it in my mind, but I wanted to record a couple of songs. So we did. We used the little band we had at my club. It was called Frizzell's Mirror Room. We went in there and recorded a couple of songs. One of them was a Whitey Schaefer song. Anyway, it was a song called Darling, Will You Marry Me Again? And so we went down. I thought that was a duet. It just sounded to me like a duet. I don't know. And we did a duet on Darling, Will You Marry Me Again? We sent those to Snuff Garrett. And that's how it all started. 2 days later, after I sent those, 2 days later, he called me. He is living down in the Hollywood area. But anyway, he called and he said, David, send me some pictures. I didn't even send no pictures. I just sent the songs. Stupid. When young, stupid. Anyway, he said to me that day, he said, if you look anything like you sound, I'm going to make you and Shelley the Sonny and Cher of country music. Wow. And that's exactly what he did. Because I sent him some pictures. And so we put the album together. And You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma made that album. I don't know if you know any of that part of it. Once we got the album done, the record label we did it for changed CEOs of that particular. David Nelson, Ricky's brother,
right,
was working at Casablanca Records is the name of it.
I remember that label.
And it had Donna Summers on there, the Village People on there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nothing like a David Shelley, you know. But David was there, and I had been doing shows with Ricky for quite a while. And, of course, a huge fan of Ricky Nelson. Everybody is and should be. But anyway, by the time we got the album done, they had changed CEOs. He didn't want nothing to do with no country music. So the album was just sitting there. And Snuff Garrett was not going for him. He started pitching it to all the other labels, RCAs, all of them, all the labels. Every one of them turned it down. And he knew that he really believed he had hits. And one of the reasons, because he had the marketing strategy already worked out. He had Lefty, David, Dottie, Shelley, already had that going. And so he just knew so he really believed in the project. I mean, I have to say he really believed in us. Finally, this is exactly what happened. He and Steve Dorff were doing soundtracks for the Clint Eastwood movies. And every which way but loose. Yeah. Any which way you can. That was one that Oklahoma ended up in. And that they were coming back from an art show in Palm Spring area. Snuff told me, he said, well, I had Clint Eastwood in the car. We're going about 70. I know he's not going to jump. So he said, listen to this. And he put You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma on the radio, on his radio. And he told me, he said, when the record quit playing, Clint said, man, that's a pistol. Let's put that in my next movie.
Wow.
Snuff said, I'll do you one better. You help me with it, and I'll give you half of it. Guess who took it to Warner Brothers for the second time? Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
He put it in the movie. The song made it onto the soundtrack. The soundtrack, they started, radio picked it up, and the first station that played You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma off of that soundtrack was Tulare, right there where we were living.
Yeah.
They were the first one to play it. They got the plaque for playing it first, and the song was being played off of that soundtrack album. Warner Brothers, seeing that, put it out as a single. And one other thing that amazes me about that whole business there was that nobody puts a song out over the Christmas area unless it's a Christmas song. Nobody puts a song out the 1st of December or, then they'll wait till February.
Yeah, because at some point the charts are going to...
Yeah, they freeze.
They freeze, yeah.
They actually put that song out the end of November, 17th of November. It's been a long time, so 17th November sticks, but it was number one the following April.
We're going to take another break, get another word in for our sponsor, and then we're going to spend some time with you and Freddie Hart and talk about that.
Hi, this is Michelle Wright, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Wow, I just joined the Music Starts Here community. This is a truly hidden gem for anyone in the music business. Whether you live in Nashville or anywhere else in the world, Music Starts Here is like a GPS for your music career. This is the place to be if you want to get advice and direction from some seriously talented musical people who have been where you want to go. Music news, events, and a great big community with resources for artists, songwriters, musicians, studio and tech, along with music business advice from pros in the industry, all on one site. Make sure you get your free profile now. Go to www.musicstartshere.org. That's musicstartshere.org.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
There's a full moon over Tulsa. I hope that it's shining on you. The nights are getting cold In Cherokee County, there's a blue northern passing through. I remember green eyes and a rancher's daughter, but remember is all that I do. Losing you left a pretty good cowboy with nothing to hold on to. Sundown came and I drove to town and drank a drink or two. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. I'm sure missing you. I'm sure missing you.
Hey, we're back in the studio. Sitting across the desk from me, David Frizzell, country music legend. You know, you go down your list, all the multiple awards, and you won a ton of them. You know, CMAs, ACMs. You had a lot of great hits. You worked with a lot of great artists, Merle, Shelley West. But you're an author, too. And you've written a couple books, which we're going to talk about. But I want to jump in first. Freddie Hart, what a legend.
I tell you what, it's been so recent that we've done this project that the feelings still get a little emotional when I think about Freddie. But my brother Lefty met up with Freddie Hart, and probably about 51 or 2, somewhere like that. And he was doing a show in Phoenix, and Freddie had made arrangements to meet Lefty at the hotel, at his motel, whichever it was. Probably a motel, knowing Lefty. And Steve Stebbins was with Lefty as a road manager and kind of manager. And so Lefty was actually getting out of the show. He was getting ready to get in the car and head to home, to California. But Freddie knocked on the door of his room. Steve opened the door, and here's this big Freddie Hart. And Freddie came in. He said he wanted to meet Lefty and wanted to sing him a couple of songs that he'd written. The idea was to get those songs over to Lefty. That was the whole idea to start with. Well, Lefty came out to the shower and that, trying to get dressed and that kind of thing. And so he met Freddie. And Freddie said, Lefty said, well, there's a Martin over there on the bed. Pick it up and sing me something. And that's what he did. Freddie was one of the great songwriters. I don't know if anybody even really knows that. Freddie was one of the absolute great songwriters. And I didn't meet him until a little bit later, probably another year later or so. But Lefty liked him so well that he invited him to get in the car and let's go to L.A. Freddie said, well, would I have time to go say goodbye to you? Well, no, he said, we're leaving now. So they got in the car, and he went with him. Lefty had him go out and open shows with him, Freddie, and then he got him an audition with Capitol Records, and so he helped Freddie get his first album, and then I helped him get his last one, and this all these years in between. So Lefty did the first one, I did the last one. Freddie wrote every song on that album you got in your hand.
God Bless You.
God bless you. Anybody that knows Freddie knows that's one of his favorite lines. And another one of his favorite lines. Anybody that knows Freddie knows how to imitate him because he was so different than anybody you'd ever met. The way he talked, the way he'd move from one area to the next. He was an amazing man. And I tell you that Lefty, being around Lefty, if you've never met Lefty, I actually feel sorry for you because he was an amazing person. But Freddie was always trying to show Lefty some judo, karate, and using me as the dummy. And I was a dummy because I stayed there when I should have ran on out of the room because Freddie hurt me several times. And finally he said, Lefty, I'm not going to show you anything anymore because you got such a temper you're going to kill somebody. And I thought, I sure hope he doesn't do that anymore anyway, because I can't stand him showing you nothing. But Freddie was an amazing man.
So many number one hits.
I think he had about 14,
when you go
30,
back and
40,
look
50.
at, Easy Lovin', My Hang Up Is You, got the All Overs for You. I mean, great titles, great music.
him and I was working through Blue Book Music. And you were required to write X amount of songs in a 3-month period, in a quarter. Every quarter you were required to write so many songs, in a quarter. And then, so once after that, we would go in the studio and we would do the demos on those songs that we'd written for the last quarter, you know what I mean? So me and Freddie's in the studio, and Freddie is, oh, bless your heart, buddy. Oh, boy, it's good to see you, buddy. Oh, you don't know rap. Oh, you look great, but you're just so precious. My wife, Joanne, who's sitting over there, every time he see her, he say, boy, and she's just so precious. Yeah, he'd call the house once in a while. I'm living out here, and he's living out there. And he said, Joe, is he being good to you? Joe said, well, yeah. He said, don't make me have to come out there. He's just an amazing man. So I got a chance to meet him. I was probably 12, 13 years old at the time.
Wow.
I never met anybody like him. I never had anybody who... My first major tour was when I was 16. Freddie Hart, Lefty Frizzell. That was the show. And we went all over Oregon, Washington, really well. Loved him all those years, all this stuff.
And this album, God Bless You, it's on your own label, right?
Right, it's on Nashville American Records. He was a friend of, well, how this kind of goes is that there's a North American Country Music Hall of Fame. North American Country Music Hall of Fame. Not the Country Music Hall of Fame here in Nashville, but the North American Country Music Hall of Fame. Me and my wife, Joe over there, Joanne, and some other people, we helped Freddie get inducted into there, and Lacey J. Dalton. But anyway, Freddie, he came onto my bus at this time. It's about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now. And he came on the bus, and he sat down there, and he said, I just wrote a song about your brother. And he knew that, somehow or other, he knew that I was working on a tribute to my brother Lefty, in which I've got 9 or 10 of them basically ready to mix. Yeah, me and Bill Anderson do a duet on Saginaw, and, me and Shelley West did a duet on I Love You 1,000 Ways. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. He wrote a song called Lefty Frizzell. And when you hear that, it's going to blow you away. I absolutely couldn't believe it. He's a cappella saying that to me. And I was absolutely blown away. I said, Freddie, I'm doing a tribute to Lefty. I said, I don't want to sing it myself. I want you to sing it. So right. I want you to come. I'm asking you, would you come out to Nashville and do that on the session? And he said, of course, that he would. And so I got him here, and we did the night he flew in on a Saturday. This was like December, a year. So it'd be last December, a year before that.
Yeah.
December the 1st is when I did the show. I hosted the Midnight Jamboree. The reason I wanted that day is because I was coming out with a children's Christmas album. So I wanted that particular day. So I booked it, and he got in here in time to be brought over to the show. And he came on that show and sang that song. Lefty Frizzell was the name of it. The next day I took him in the studio, and we started that whole project. But he asked me if I would produce, which would probably be his last album. And I'd do anything for Freddie, so, naturally. But he wrote every one of those songs that you see there in front of you, every one of the songs. And I wanted him to redo Easy Lovin'. Now, he's 91 years old, right? But I wanted him to redo Easy Lovin' so it would have a big name on the album other than his own name to help reinforce the album, So anyway, but he wrote all the other songs on there as well. And there's 10 gospel songs, and there's 1 Christmas song, and then Easy Lovin'. I've known Freddie since I was a kid, and I've known that he wrote all these great songs, but I had never been around him when he wrote a word to any of them. I'd never seen him write the words to any of his songs down. They were all here.
In his head, his body.
And in one of those songs, he does a prayer to God. And every time we'd do that, and he'd do another vocal on it, he changed it every time. It was never the same prayer every time. And there's something about him that just always was so amazing about him.
Yeah.
And so he actually set up in my studio all day long and sang those songs. So what happened was neat about it is that, of course, we got all the update equipment and stuff like that. But he did enough cuts on each one of them that we were able to, like I say, 91 years old, we was able to
edit it together.
Edit them so they all worked. One little spot in there with a little bit of time, I brought in a good friend of mine, Jimmy Fortune, who can sing anything, anytime, anywhere, about anything. It's that great. He is the best there is. And so he's on the album there, helping Freddie a little bit with that first part of Easy Lovin'. So anyway, it's a great album. I'm proud to have done it. And it was a work of love for a man that I had all the respect for in the world, was Freddie Hart.
One of the things we talked about before we dug into Freddie was you being an author, and you wrote a book. You wrote a book or two, I think. Here.
I did write a book.
Yeah. I Love You 1,000 Ways, the Lefty Frizzell story.
I'll tell you kind of how that got started. I moved out to Nashville from California, and I've been out there most of my life. And when I got back here to Nashville, I had a #1 record. And boy, a lot of doors open for you when you got that #1 record, as I thought that it probably would. But everything that people would say about Lefty or write about Lefty was always wrong. It was always wrong. And I'm always upset. I mean, I'm running around in this country with a #1 record and mad as I could be.
Yeah.
and we'd stop at all of them. I think they were those big truck stops in those days. And we'd stop at them, and I'd get out, walk around, the bus, the tour buses and stuff, and I'd get out, and I'd go in any cassette. In those days, it was cassettes. Any cassette that had Lefty, I'd get it. I don't care if I had a dozen of them on the stop, I'd buy it. Anything on Lefty, I'd always get it. And then I'd go and listen to it, and then I'd get mad because people would write stuff about Lefty that was not right. And I'm his brother, but I know that, I was with him all those years, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
I know when... most people would tell you a story maybe about Lefty, but it's told from their version of it.
It's their perspective.
It's their perspective.
Yeah.
And it was never, I don't care if it was his son talking or whether it was Alice, his wife, talking. That was still coming from their point of view. And so I told my wife, Joanne, and because she saw me mad all the time, and she said, well, if you don't like it, why don't you just write it yourself? And I said, well, I can. Then I was stuck with it, right? She made sure that I was stuck with it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did start writing it. There was so many things in his life that I didn't want to write about. So I'd have to put the book back out of the way until I could get over the idea that I had to write about it because it's a bio. I mean, it has to be real. I can't just skip that because I didn't like it.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's really tough. And of course, the last 2 chapters of that is when he left us and where everybody was at, in their life, in their lifetime at that moment when that all happened. We all had to come to Nashville. So I had to tell about how each one of us got here. Everyone was a different thing. My mom and dad were in Tipton, California, which is outside of Tulare, Visalia, in that area. And they had Brother Bill with them. There was 9 of us kids. So we were just everywhere. I was in Washington State on a tour, and the most unbelievable thing was I was doing the show. I never do a show that I don't do a Lefty song. I actually had made him promise that if I ever come out with somebody with a song, you do that too. he said, well, then I probably would. But then I didn't get my records before he passed.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I started writing the book, and the last 2 chapters. The hardest thing for me to do, probably one of the hardest things I've done by being in this business, is to do that audiobook because I had to read that. And I could never get to those parts, the last 2 chapters, without breaking down. Emotionally, the tears start falling. I mean, I don't care if I do it now. The same thing would happen.
Yeah.
It happened all these years. One other really kind of neat little thing about this book is that I'm sitting in where I'm writing the book. First, I started writing it just with a pencil. And then I'd take it to Jo, and then I'd have to go back with her, read it to her so she could, because I couldn't type. Finally, after a while, she says, you're going to have to start typing. You're going to have to do this yourself. She didn't like to working with me personally, I don't think. Anyway.
She liked being married to you.
Anyway, so she gave me her little laptop. So I wrote that whole book on that laptop. And I did find backspace. But I always thought it would be like writing a song. You got to make it work. And when you write it, you got to have an eraser because you got to write it so that it has this feeling that goes from one line to the next line. It has to be like, so I wrote every chapter of that like a song.
Wow.
And it was told me by the lady who helped edit it. She says, I've never seen anybody else in the world write like that, the way that you write. You wrote this where you start out like this, and then you build, it has your craters and has your mountains and like a song. She said, but each chapter of this book is written like you write a song. There was one time when I was really getting into the business part of Lefty, where they were taking his songs away from him, and they had 50% of everything he made, and you know, it was so awful that I just didn't want to write about it. So it took me a year or two just to get away from it. And then somebody wanted to help me, wanted to make a movie type thing, so I had to go finish it. Then we ended up not doing it, but it made me get back into it to finish it up. And so I ended up having to write about it, and I hated that because I hated the way people were taking advantage of a person who only went to the 6th grade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was music. He was not business. You know, I'm not business either. I hate business. When I start taking care of it, Joanne over here is the greatest there is because she keeps me away from, well, she'll ask me a question here and there, but basically she does it because it takes, if I start getting into business, and him the same way, the same exact thing, he get any kind of business, it takes your creativity away. It just does. It does for me.
It's that right brain, left brain.
And so I don't like to get into it. You know, I don't know. She will ask me the questions, and I'll answer them, and then I'll go out and mow the grass, you know, or whatever. But anyway, so I'm in there, and I'm ready to say the end. I'm ready to find how do I get to the end. And so I'm sitting in my room, and I thought to myself, and she was in the house someplace, I didn't even know where, but she was in the house someplace. Once in a while I get her out of, you know, because I'm in this room. And I thought, when I get this wrote, when I can ever get to the end, I'm going to have this book typed up. I'm going to have this thing written up, and I'm going to give the first copy to Merle. I'm going to give the first copy to Merle. And so I knew we were going to do the Florida State Fair. Merle was going to be there on a Tuesday. I was on the show on Thursday. So I said, I'm using that as I'll get this to him. I'll go down early. I'll get this to him. Anyway, boy, I'm just really trying to find the end. And then Merle's on my brain. And I thought, I'm going to call him as soon as I get to the end. And so I'm typing away on this one finger at a time, you know, backspace. If you can imagine. Anyway, I thought, I did not hear her leave. I did not hear her going to the store. I did not hear her picking up an album of Merle singing Lefty. Didn't know it. All of a sudden, I hear I Want to Be With You Always, #1 record for Lefty, back in 51, I think it was. That sounded like Merle. I mean, and the tears are falling out from just writing anyway, because I'm writing about Lefty's death and how Mama got back here, how I got back here, how my brother got back, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm right in the middle of that. Tears just falling all over my little typewriter thing. And Merle is kind of in there someplace. All of a sudden I hear, I Want to Be With You Always. Just a little bit, just enough to drift it in the air so that I could hear it. And so I just kept typing, kept going, trying to get to the end, because I know what happened. So I know how to do it, you know, what I'm doing. And I thought, I'm going to give Merle a call. And I looked down at where I had a cup of Pepsi, I think it was, that I was drinking at that. And so I reached in there, and there was a note there. There wasn't no note there before. How'd the note get there? I have no idea how that note got there. But it was a note that says, call Merle, coming through Nashville, on his way to dinner, and call him at this number. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Because it was right there. I wrote the end, and when it got to the end, the spot where it's going to get to the end, and I picked that up and I called Merle. He was already just outside of, I think it was Miami or someplace, Tampa. I think it was Tampa, Anyway, he said, I got a show to do here on Tuesday. He said, so I'm on my way down there right now. He said, I went through Nashville, thought I'd get hold of you. I said, well, I got something for you, so I'm coming down early. So me and Joe, we took off and we got down there on Tuesday. He was on about the last one or two songs when we showed up. And so Frank Mull, who worked with Merle, got a hold of me. And when Merle went on out, got him out to the bus, got Merle out to the bus, there was a line of people from here back up to the Opry House. Frank takes me and puts me in front of the line. And there was people that knew me and was saying, David, get us in the bus. Can you get us in the bus? I can't. I'm trying to get myself in the bus. So I went in there and I brought the written out book of Brother Lefty. Now I have to admit that I redid that book several times after that, but he had the very first one. And I wanted him to have that. And so I was able to get it to him.
And they can find this on your website?
They can find that on the website, davidfrizzell.com.
David, thank you so much.
We get enough in?
This is
great.
great.
Did you get enough? I say you still got a stack.
We'd love to have you back on the show.
Well, I appreciate it.
We really would. This is great.
But I appreciate you having me on the show.
Thank you so much.
Hey, good luck to you, pal.
Hey, don't forget to check out our affiliates, including Lab Canna, fine hemp products since 2014. Click on their link on our website for more information and how to order their product line. Also, don't forget to check out our other affiliate, Music Starts Here. You can find them at www.musicstartshere.org. Probably the best one-stop shop for the singer, songwriter, or aspiring musician who is relocating to Nashville or wants to. Also, shameless plug for the business side of music. Become a YouTube subscriber. Check out our website at www.businesssideofmusic.com. Follow us on Facebook at the Business Side of Music Podcast or on Twitter at Business Side of Music Podcast.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Los Angeles, California and Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound designed by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.